I think it's only appropriate to begin this journey by introducing the inspiration behind the concept of this podcast, which is my dear beloved cat, Milktea. We met by a fateful meeting in 2019 when I was still a college student. This is quite a long story. It's not that straightforward, but it all began when I took this class. I think it was called Introduction to Photography. And at the time, I took it with my best friend, who is very much like a big animal person. Like, she has her own dog that she rescued, and she just, advocates adopt, don't shop, and stuff like that. And for that class, we had to do a final project, and it was a photo series on, like, a photo documentary almost, on someone of your choosing, right? And of course, she chose like an animal rescuer. I think that's the correct term for it, animal rescuer, who was battling sort of an intense illness. So one day, I decided to tag along with her while she was interviewing her and taking photos and stuff like that. And I was just wandering around, doing my own thing while she does her thing. And I noticed that there was like a stray cat on the side of the street. So I was just kind of like, wanting to play with the cat and just looking at her from afar, because I am someone who loves animal, but because I live in a traditional Asian household, my parents didn't quite believe in, owning anything that was bigger than a hamster. So I never had dogs, I never had cats, but I've always wanted a dog and a cat. I used to be a dog person, but I have no idea what happened. For some reason, I just transitioned into a cat person, because I guess I realized that the responsibilities that comes with owning a dog, I have to walk it, I didn't have enough time to take care of it if I did have a dog. But if I had a cat is a lot more self-sustainable, and they have more of an attitude. So I guess I just fell in love with cats more. So I'm just looking at this cat, right? And then she just finished her interview with her interviewee, and they stepped out. And I'm like, oh, look, there's a stray cat. The cat's been lingering around here for, quite a few weeks. So we're like, oh. Because we thought initially that it was someone else's cat, because she had these fur that just looked so fluffy. It looked very much well kept. So we didn't think that it was like a stray cat from a glance, right? And my friend had told her interviewee how I really, really wanted a cat, but, I couldn't adopt one, or for some reason, because my parents would strongly object. And she said, well, I've seen her around for a long time, and it doesn't look like she's someone else's cat. So let's go ahead and trap her, and, you can adopt her. At first I thought she was joking. I was like, nah, it's okay. I'm all right. She went back into her garage, and she took out these, like a trapper. It's a very long rectangular cage. She's like, no, let's do this. So we got the cat in the cage, and they put the cat in my car. And they're like, all right, here you go. And I was just sitting in my car like, wow, I have a cat now. What do I do? So my friend and I, first thing we did is we went to a pet store, got a bunch of stuff like cat litter, cat food, cat toy, and I took the cat home. I didn't know what to do. I didn't really know what I was doing. So I just set up a little corner to the best of my ability, and I just, hung out with her, and we played, we bonded. I gave her a name. I named her Bobby, like Bobbie. And, whenever I get out of class, and then we just hang out, and I had a grand old time, but it really irked us. I don't know if that's the right word. It just felt like this cat is feral or is not feral. This cat is very tamed. It's unexpected from a stray cat. So we decided to take her to the animal shelter and get her, check her microchip if she had one. So we finally had a day where I was out of class and she was out of class, and we would both go together. Because I was not very familiar with handling with a larger pet. Like, I was really struggling to put her in like a carrier to take her to the animal shelter because she hated it. She absolutely hated it. So it took 2 men to finish that job. So we drove to the animal shelter, and they scanned her microchip, and it turns out that, well, I already said microchip, so you figured out that she is someone else's cat. So we're like, okay, someone else lost this cat. Let's find out who she is. So they had a phone number registered to the microchip, and then we called. This lady didn't even realize that she had a lost cat. If I remember correctly, I think this is not the first time that people have returned her cat to this animal shelter. But this lady was like, oh, I lost my cat. Oh, thanks. And then I was so heartbroken because this was my quote-unquote first cat, and I really just poured a lot of love into Bobby, and I was just really hoping that we would be the one, like this would be my cat. But she turned out to be someone else's cat, so I guess that was the second best thing that happened to me that month. First thing being Bobby, second thing being returning her to her original owner. So on the drive home, we were listening to Sam Smith, and I was just bawling because I was sad. It felt like I had lost my cat, even though it wasn't necessarily my cat. So my friend's like, there, it's okay. Let me help you cope. Let me just be the best wing woman of the century. How about this? We will come back to the animal shelter. I don't even remember if it's on a weekly basis or sometimes twice a week. We would just go to the animal shelter to de-stress and just spend some time with cats that are, ready to adopt. So I told her, that sounds like a great idea because I won't need some cats in my life. So we would always go on these random impulsive drives to the local animal shelters. And there is this one particular cat that I took notice of because he was there for quite a long time. Usually, I would say that they have a pretty fast turnaround time on how frequently cats get adopted, but there is just one cat that came in with his brother. I think his brother was like a Siamese as well, and it was like one of those classics Siamese coloring, and then Milktea was a flame point. I think that's what they called his coating. So at first, I thought Milktea's brother was very, very beautiful, right? And a lot of other people thought so as well because his brother got adopted like that fast, while Milktea stayed there for a couple more weeks. And I started to hang out with Milktea because he was super gentle. He was just so loving. I would sit down to kind of just pet with him and hang out, and he would be grooming himself, and all of a sudden he would be grooming me. And I was like, okay, so you're kind of like a dad. And he was 8 years old, so he was one of the senior cats. And you know how senior cats don't get adopted as fast as the younger cats, because especially kittens, because people want kittens, they want to raise them when they're young. So I'm just slowly but surely bonding with the senior cat. And then one time, I even decided to go to the animal shelter without my friend, because we would always go together. And this time I went by myself and I had some one-on-one time with Milktea. His original name was not Milktea. His original name was like some weird, I don't even understand how to pronounce it. It's probably from an anime, like, to be honest. And I took a photo of Milktea and I sent it to my friend. I was like, look, I'm hanging out with insert name. I forgot his original name. And she goes, I bet you won't adopt him though. I was like, oh yeah? She said, yeah, bet. So I think I sat there for 45 more minutes. And I went to the front desk and I got like a little waiting number. And I'm just like petting and singing to Milktea. And then they called my number over the radio. And I was like, oh, that's me. So I went to the front desk. And they're like, okay, what would you like to do today? And I told them, I want to adopt insert number and name here that I don't remember anymore. And they go, okay, are you sure? I was like, yes, I'm sure. I just, at that moment, it felt like it was right. It felt like I really found my cat. And Milktea was really chill. They put him in a box. And the lady asked me, what would you like to name your cat? Because they were doing this thing. What is the thing called? I think maybe it's just like a name tag, that goes on the collar. They were doing that for free. And, of course I want one. So she goes, what would you like to name your cat? And at the moment I did not think about it at all. And then all of a sudden, I looked at his coat. He had this cream color. And I said, Milktea. She's like, milk tea? I was like, yes, but one word, no space in between. So she put Milktea on his little name tag. And I took that little name tag, put it around his neck, and we went home. So I took him back to our apartment, which I shared with another roommate. And she fell in love with him as well because he is just this giant, fluffy cream puff that was borderline obese. And that's super old, but has a lot of love to give. So he quickly adjusted into my life. And we spend 2 months together in total. So if you think about it, it's actually not that much time at all. I adopted him in November, and November, December was kind of like final season and Thanksgiving. So we gone through a lot of how should I say, important holidays and critical times in my life together. I was in college and I was kind of going through a pivotal point, I would say, in my decision about what to pursue in my future. And I will talk about more of this in future podcasts. But basically, long story short, I was pursuing pre-medicine. It was something that my parents really wanted me to do. And I had expressed to them that after 2 years of trying it out, I understand that it was not something for me. But my parents didn't receive it well. And basically, I had to kind of suck it up and continue doing what I disliked doing. And it was putting my mental health in a rocky place. And then Milktea came into my life like a service dog, like more like a service cat. And he was always nosy. He was always curious about what I'm doing. If I'm cooking something, I'm like, what are you cooking? If I'm doing homework, he'll come over here and it's like, what are you doing? And then whenever I'm just sitting down and chilling, he would come over and groom me, like, what are you watching? So I also refer to Milktea as dad because he's old. He has a beer belly. If he just, stand on his four, you can just see his little belly just hanging. And we would make fun of him. We just call him dad. So he wasn't like a dad figure in my life, but he was like someone who I can come home to and depend on and express my stress at work, at school, and then frustration with my parents, with my classes. He was just there for me. And his presence really comforted me a lot. And oh my goodness, he has this signature blue bow tie on his collar. It was something that my friend had bought me after I adopted. After she told me that, bet you won't adopt that cat. And I say, yes, I did. She bought Milktea a blue bow tie. And then we added that blue bow tie to his collar. And it matched really well with his eyes because he had blue eyes. I didn't know he had blue eyes at the moment because at the shelter they were just not as prominent. And then when I brought him home, I was like, whoa there, you have blue eyes. Okay, you are very attractive, sir. And he was. So it just made him look a whole lot more dapper, added some attitude to his style. And we also bought him this infant size, it's like a Santa Claus t-shirt, but it was like extra large for a 6-month-old. And we decided to put that on Milktea, and it was golden. He did not know what to do with his limbs, but he was trying super hard to get out of them, and it was just cracking us up. And that went on for about 2 months. In January, I started to realize something was different with Milktea's coating. His fur was, I don't know how exactly to describe it, but if you have a pet, I think you probably know about this more than I do. If you look at their fur, sometimes you can tell like there's a difference. And for me, one day I came back and I noticed that his fur was looking a little odd. And at first I didn't think of any much of it. But then I started to realize that he was eating less and less. And that's very odd for Milktea because, as I've mentioned before, he was borderline obese. So he loved food. And one thing on his, on his kind of like a profile sheet, info sheet in his room when he was in the animal shelter was that it's like they had a pros and cons list. It's not called a pros and cons list. I just forgot what it was called. And one of his cons was that he eats a lot of food. They wrote that he ate a lot of food and it was something that they didn't like about him. I was like, hold up, wait. He's just a cat. And they also wrote that he ate so much, he even ate the dog food as well. It's like, well, I can see how that is true because he's just really trying to eat up everything. But I noticed that he was eating less and less. And he wasn't pooping at all. And he was barely peeing. And I was like, okay, plane, do your thing. I don't know where that plane is going, but safe trip. And I was really confused because I don't think that is normal, right? And I asked my friend, and she said, no, that does not sound right at all. So one day there was a trip before we took him to ER. It was on a Wednesday. I decided to skip class and take Milktea to Thrive. I think it was called Thrive. It was a vet clinic that was relatively more affordable. So I took him there and I told the vet what was happening to Milktea. He's not eating, he's not really peeing, I don't know what's going on, his coat looks different. So she said, okay, let's take some pictures and see what is going on. And I sat outside and waited and waited and waited, and she came out with her little tablet and she showed me some picture. And then she told me that there were some fluids in his abdomen that I forgot what exactly did she tell me, but there were some fluids in his abdomen that should not be there. So they told me that they needed to take some more blood samples, but at the time I didn't have enough money because I was a student and I was also working part-time to pay my rent. But I did have a little bit saved up, but I didn't have enough money to proceed with the blood work. And I had asked my parents, and my mom was saying that, well, you decide to have this pet, so you need to figure out what to do. So I took Milktea back, and I was just kind of thinking, okay, now what? And there's really no way around it. So I don't remember how, but I think I just kept working and I kept I had to buy these little syringes and I bought some baby food so that I could feed him something, because I didn't want him to go without food or water. I don't even know if he was drinking water because it was just like, what is happening to you, Milktea? I don't know what to do. I was so new at it and I hated it. It's like I would come home in a rush and just check his food, but there's nothing. Just still haven't touched it. Milktea is just kind of sleeping. And I was really concerned to a point where we decided to take him to the emergency room one day really late. I think we were studying in my living room. And then I was just like, let's just go. This doesn't feel right. So we took him there and found out that from his, blood work and all that stuff, something is definitely wrong. And if we had done like an emergency procedure, it would have cost like thousands of dollars. And I didn't have that money. I didn't have that money anymore. So we started a GoFundMe. And someone commented on GoFundMe, we also posted in our college's pets group. And someone told us that, hey, before you proceed with that ER procedure, also here's my donation, but before you proceed with that, why don't you go check out another vet, okay? To get some specific scans or something, and to see if they have a cheaper price, because other places it's going to be cheaper than the ER place, right? So we said okay, and then we drove to another clinic that was a little bit farther from where we were living, and I was just waiting anxiously, as I have been doing for that entire week and and she came out to fetch me, and then we went back to the room where Milktea was just kind of like laying down. He seems a lot more calmer than before, so I don't know if they gave him any, medicine to help him withdraw the blood work and the fluid in his stomach. But she showed me some scans, and she told me that we also saw some fluids in his abdomen, just as the Thrive vet had told me. But after we did the blood work, we realized that there was something wrong with his there's like some sort of some level in his blood was off, and it has two possibilities, and one of them was because he had this terminal illness that I no longer remember what it was called, but basically it's a common trait that exists among every cat, except when it mutates, it becomes lethal. And she said that is one of the possibility that he has, that could explain all of this. And another possibility is his organs are failing. And if you proceed with an organ transplant, maybe he will live a little bit longer. And for me, my first thought is, oh, yeah, then let's do the organ transplant. Like, why not do that? I'll freaking sign up for that pet credit card that you offer at this place. Like, let's get the ball rolling. But at the same time, she told me that because he's so old, there is a possibility that he won't survive surgery. And I did not know what to do. Of course, my friend and I were for the surgery route to get him, just to extend the time that he has left as long as possible. But at the same time, seeing how miserable he was for the past few days, I didn't know if it was the right thing to do, if I put him through all of that again, because I selfishly wanted to keep him. So I told her that I needed a moment, and I stepped out and I called my dad. And I called him, hey Dad, you know what I've been telling you that was going on with Milktea, with his condition? And today I went to another vet, and they told me that he had this illness, this terminal illness, that if I proceed with a procedure, that perhaps his life could be extended just, a few more years, months, days, I don't know. And he said, well, I think you know what is the right thing to do. And I told him I did. But I wanted another voice to tell me to do it, so I don't feel pressure to make that decision alone. And he said I should not be putting him through more misery if he was already experiencing so much. You want to give him that procedure and make him go through all that because you want to keep him here longer. But what if it was his time to go? Like, you can't not be selfish like that and make him suffer. And I knew what he was saying was right. And after I hung up, I stood outside for a little bit to calm down because my friend was already crying. And I was borderline tearing up. And when I went back into the room, she said, "What have you decided?" And I don't remember if I told her anything. But I felt like I didn't need to say anything. She understood what I had to do. And we said our goodbyes. And I was holding him on my lap. And he was just such a good cat. He just sat on my lap, and this dad was comforting me. And I held him like a baby. And he just went to sleep in my arms. It was probably one of the hardest things I've done. And that moment is when I realized, I wish I'd never have to do this ever again. The responsibility of someone else's life, being decided by me was so heavy. And I didn't think I was qualified enough to make that decision. And I've always thought, what if we just went with the procedure? Would Milktea still be here with me? But I knew that he left in my arms. So at least it erased all the pain that he was experiencing. And maybe he probably thought that it was just a nap. And now he woke up at a better place, looking down on me like a dad. And I miss him so much. I really do. And I don't really talk about this part that often anymore, because I didn't like to experience it. For the longest time, I was so confused because never have I once dreamed about Milktea. And I was questioning myself, is it because I don't love him enough? What's going on? Usually if you miss someone, you would eventually dream about them. But I've never once dreamed about Milktea. And my friend said, well, maybe it is because that part of your memories is suppressed. You don't want to think about it. And I would like to think about it because I really want to see Milktea again, even though if it's just dreams. But yeah, every year I still try to celebrate his birthday. Well, it isn't necessarily the day that he was born, but it was the day that he was adopted by me, so I consider that as a birthday. I appreciate everything he has done for me. Even though he punctured my air mattress, and oh my god, he punctured my air mattress, and I came home, and My air mattress wasn't completely deflated yet, but he was sitting at one corner of the air mattress, and that part of the mattress just like sunk to the ground. And when I came back from class, I was like, oh my God, what happened to my bed? And I couldn't figure out where the hole was. So I had to press down on my bed really hard and just like listen. And apparently he has punctured like the bottom of my air mattress. So instead of just sleeping on a half inflated air mattress, I decided to let the air completely out, and I slept on my mattress. Just think of it as like a sheet on the ground for like weeks until my friend came over to visit Milktea. She doesn't really visit me. She comes to my apartment to see my cat. And she goes, oh my God, why did you deflate your air mattress? I was like, I didn't. Milktea did. So you just been sleeping on the floor? I was like, yes, I have. And she was making fun of me for the longest time, and she decided to generously lend me her air mattress that she no longer used. So I had a new small air mattress after Milktea had passed. I remember laying on the floor the day after, and I had bought him this automatic feeder because, as we've mentioned before, he eats a lot. So if I pour like a certain amount of his food in this bowl, he'll just finish it real quick, and I wouldn't be able to remember, did I feed you today? I can't tell because your bowl is empty as usual. And also for portion control, because when I took him to the checkup, they told me and reminded me that he was borderline obese and he needed to watch his weight. So I bought him the automatic feeder that helps me portion. And just in case if I'm not home and I'm in class, he could still get his meals. And the day after, I was laying down on my deflated air mattress on the floor, and I just hear the automatic feeder goes, it was turning, and it was a new day. And I just remember kind of not really laughing, but there's another plane. There's another plane. I remember saying, silly buddy, you don't need to do that anymore. Like, Milktea's not here anymore. And that made me, I started bawling again because of that little automatic pet feeder. And I just kind of left Milktea's stuff there for a little bit because I didn't want to pick it up. It gave me this illusion that he was still there, just napping in some corner I can't see. And I took his collar, the one with the blue bow tie, and his little name tag that says Milktea with my phone number in the back. And I just kind of clipped it in my car behind my rearview mirror. So now he's always with me wherever I go. I just wish that I could have given him more of everything. But mostly time. I wish I could give him more time to be together, but thank you for being my technically first cat and giving me so many wonderful memories. Thank you for coming into my life. I hope you're doing well. Since this is going to be uploaded to the cloud, and you're in the clouds now, so it should be easy for you to find this podcast. There's no excuse. If you're listening to this, I hope you are controlling your portions as our vet have suggested for you to do. Even though there are no vets up there, I hope you comply to whatever our vets told you. And just have a grand old time up there. Try not to pierce any clouds though, because then it'll rain. And if it rains, it's going to make me moody. If I'm moody, I'm going to start crying about you. So don't do that. Just be gentle, like you always have been with me. All right? And that's it for Milktea's legacy. And I'll see you next time. Oh, lactose intolerant. You thought I ended, didn't you? Now it's officially ended.